It might seem unbelievable in today's market, but new data shows a large share of recent Ontario homebuyers are under the age of 30. Terranet found that among single first-time buyers, the largest cohort is 25 to 30 years old. And this is surprising because the average first-time buyer in Ontario is now closer to 40 and affordability is at record lows. Yet somehow many 20-somethings are signing closing papers. And I think this tells me a lot about the sort of sideline buyers that we hear all these realtors talking about who are coming back into the market. It's not your step-up buyers who have equity because their equity has been drawn down. They've lost purchasing power. They're not super motivated. It's not your more experienced buyers. It's not investors. It really is first-time buyers who are the ones taking the risk, starting the knife catching competition and getting back into the market. If you think about the experience of a first-time home buyer, maybe you get your first job in like 2018, 2019. You've got a couple of years of good earnings. You've got a solid T4, credit's good. You put away some savings for a down payment. You've been renting maybe with a partner or on your own. You're confident you can make those payments. And then COVID happens. And you think that COVID might have a big negative impact on prices. And so you're like, I'm not going to rush. This feels like a really scary environment to be buying a house. And then 2021 happens and we're in a record low rate environment. Prices are growing like double digits year over year. And it does that for 2 years straight. And so now on this 5-year period of your working life, you're basically feeling like you have been completely excluded from the housing market. And it's that those buyers who felt like they got marginalized out and left out and forgotten about, who are the ones who are starting to come back to the market, likely because they don't have the experience and that wound, that pain of missing out and the fear of missing out is still very real and fresh for them. And because they're young first-time buyers committing to a very long payment period, they're often like qualitatively incentivized to overpay or take a little bit more risk because they feel like they have this 25-year horizon, their mortgage amortization, to kind of wash away any of the mistakes that they might make buying today. How are they doing it? A huge part of the story here is the bank of mom and dad. CMHC recently found that 41% of first-time buyers received financial gifts or inheritance towards their down payment, averaging about $74,000. And Benjamin Tal from CIBC found a similar data point in his research. In Ontario, about 36% of all first-time buyers get help from family, with the average gift over $128,000. Nationally, gifts average around $115,000, up 73% since 2019. So this really explains the paradox. Affordability is worse, but young buyers with parental help are still buying. Terranet even found that nearly 1 in 10 buyers aged 25 to 30 bought with no mortgage at all, likely thanks to large gifts or inheritances or their parents taking out a HELOC and letting them buy the house cash and maybe having them service the interest payments on that HELOC. And this is why Statistics Canada data recently found if your parents own a home, you are far more likely to become a homeowner yourself. And the more properties that your parents own, the more likely you are to own a home. So for those with parental help, the dream of homeownership is still alive. But for those without, the gap is growing wider. This is why economists warn of this gifting trend and how the real estate market is widening inequality, exacerbating the disparity that exists between people who own homes and people who don't own homes. And so owning a home is increasingly tied not just to your income and your ability to qualify for a mortgage, but also to whether your parents can transfer wealth to you. Now, speaking of gifts, let me make a quick pivot on a gift that I want to give you before I get to this Terranet data. As a realtor, I give out a lot of gift cards to clients, referral partners, and colleagues as a thank you. And recently I started using a new platform for this, and I was honestly impressed enough that I wanted to share it with you. It's called Snapple. They're headquartered in Canada. And it's basically a digital wallet for e-gift cards. You can buy gift cards from hundreds of top brands, your Walmarts, Uber Eats, Sephora, you name it. And the cool part is you get instant cash back on every purchase. I've been using it for client gifts, like I mentioned, and it actually saves me money while I'm giving something away. Everything stays organized in the app and it's seamless whether you're gifting or spending it yourself. And so the Snapple team was kind enough to partner with me for this video, and to celebrate, I'm giving away a $100 gift card that I purchased on Snapple to one random commenter on this. If you join from the link in the video, you will get 30% on your first $20 gift card order and 20% back on your second $20 gift card order. Just make sure you use the referral code that's in the description. It's CD13E6. My goal for doing this is, honestly, I just really appreciate all of you who follow me and completely light up my comments. I think that the debates that go on there are super entertaining and informative, and I really appreciate it. And a lot of my videos get a lot of comments, which I really like. And I want this to be the video that has the most comments. So help me set this record, and you got a chance to win $100 to a gift card of your choosing that's available on the Snapple platform. Drop a comment below. Do you think it is fair that parental gifting is now such a huge part of Canada's housing market, or is this just a reality that we have to accept? I'm going to pick one of you at random 1 month from now, and I'll respond to your comment and send you a link to that $100 Snapple gift card as a thank you. Okay, so the report that I'm going through here is called the First-Time Homebuyer Market Snapshot from Parental. And there's a handful of really good charts that provide an overview of the role of first-time homebuyers in Ontario's housing market right now. And you can see during the pandemic, we saw a huge increase in multi-property owner buyers. Multi-property owners surpassed the number of new transactions after 2020, and they were way ahead of first-time buyers in 2021 and 2022. So you can visually see on this chart, first-time home buyers basically getting pushed out of the market. In fact, in 2021, even second home buyers were buying more houses than first-time buyers. And this is especially interesting to me because the Bank of Canada observed that first-time home buyers are like 50% of buyers in the Canadian real estate market, which makes sense because they don't own a home. And so they do need to buy a home, whereas your repeat home buyers or investors don't really need to buy a property, right? And they already own something. And so your repeat home buyers are about 30% of the market, investors were about 20% of the market, and first-time home buyers are about 50% of the market. That's at a national level. And historically, the Ontario trends kind of looked like that, except in 2017, 2018, when we had that huge wave of foreign buyers basically pushing the luxury market up. That was the last time we saw like a big run up in house prices and a steep crash when the non-resident speculation tax and stress test came into place. But after 2023, your investor market basically started to fall off. It's coming back a little bit now. They're representing about 27%. That's your multi-property owners. They're representing about 27% of all buyers in the market right now. But your first-time buyers have really been ramping up. They've come from 26% of all purchases in 2023 up to 33% of all purchases in 2025. And this is freehold purchases. If you jump over to condo, your investors are still the biggest buyers, and they've been ahead of first-time buyers for 4 years now, and they're at about 40%. But a lot of this is likely because this is closing data. It's not MLS sales transaction data. A lot of this is probably your pre-con purchasers closing on properties now, and this is why you can see a really strong uptick because we have record pre-con closings taking place this year. First-time homebuyers are buying slightly more condos than 1 year prior and slightly fewer non-condos, but their preference is still not non-condos, with almost 70%, about 2/3 of first-time buyers buying non-condos or freehold properties, and about a third buying condos. And so the idea that condos are like this like step-up product that all first-time buyers want just doesn't seem to track in the data. We are seeing a slight uptick in the value of property from last year that first-time buyers are buying on the detached side, but a decrease in the condo product that they're buying. So they're spending about 5% less on condos and about 10% more on detached. And this is across Ontario. So it's not like the market's going up, because we know house prices have fallen in most places in Ontario. So it's probably just a choice that they're actually buying bigger houses, which could communicate a little bit of optimism on the first-time homebuyer side of things. First-time buyers are also actually buying a record share of new builds, although it's still relatively small compared to resale and resale new build. But new builds as a percentage of total are actually the highest that they've ever been on Terranet's data set, except for 2021 was a higher amount, but a smaller portion of total because there was fewer transactions. And the biggest change that we saw in their buying behavior was an increase in first-time buyers buying new build condos and buying resale new build condos. Those two went up, whereas in fact, new build saw a 15% increase in first-time homebuyer purchases, whereas your resale new build, which is basically like inventory units, it's a new build that already exists, jumped up about 8% since last year, but their resale market activity actually dropped by 4.7%. So it almost begs the question, were first-time homebuyers actually playing a role in this pre-construction market and a lot of those closings that we're seeing rolling in today? were actually first-time homebuyers who were maybe buying 2 or 3 years ago and capitalizing on these long spread out deposit structures to try and get into their first house. The regional preferences I found a little bit interesting. Obviously, condo is going to be concentrated in Toronto and a little bit in Mississauga and York region. But when you see first-time homebuyers buying freehold houses, it spreads quite a bit. Ottawa is obviously a really popular market. Simcoe County, York region, somewhat popular. But then the most popular would be actually your Durham and Peel regions, which are above Toronto. And then as you get away from the core, you start to see a little bit, Waterloo, Hamilton region becoming increasingly popular, but still not nearly as popular as your Durham and Peel. York region, obviously similar in proximity to Durham and Peel. The bigger challenge there is the house prices are just so much more expensive when you compare them. To kind of circle back to the bank of mom and dad thing, the parties on title with first-time homebuyers, we were actually seeing an increase in single party first-time homebuyers. So this is just one person on title, one person buying the house. So no spouse, no parent, etc. And we're seeing a decrease in spousal or two people on title. And then your 3 and 3 plus, which is maybe a couple who has a parent co-signing on the mortgage or whatever, has basically stayed in a low range around like 2 to 4%. And so that parent gifting is probably a lot more common of a way for them to help than the parent co-signing. This is where the age part comes in that I was mentioning in the intro. For condos, one-party condo purchases, the largest group of buyers is actually 25 to 30-year-olds, which I found very surprising. And for two parties, so typically your couples, the largest group of purchasers is 30 to 35 years old. When you go to 3 and 3 plus parties, so this could be your spouses plus parents, and I think it's averaged out, but it could also be like maybe 3 condo investors or speculators getting together to close on a joint condo. The largest group is 40 to 45-year-olds. And when you go to freehold, so non-condos, the largest group of purchasers for singles is still 25 to 30-year-olds, and for couples is 30 to 35. Typically, your one-party buyers are buying with a big six bank. They're actually buying with a record share of big six banks, almost 2/3 at about 63%. And it's a similar trend for couples or two-party purchases. So what does all of this data really tell us? First-time homebuyers are stepping up in a big way. They're driving freehold purchases across Ontario and showing surprising strength for solo condo purchases, and in many cases, even entering the market without mortgages. These are all data points that I found quite surprising, but they do tell me a little bit of a story about who the optimistic buyers in the market are right now. And from my perspective, it does make sense that those optimistic buyers are the least experienced and the ones who were the most victimized by the run up and got pushed out of the market during the pandemic bull run. We also see that location and affordability go hand in hand. Condos remain focused in Toronto, which is your affordable product, while non-condos are spreading across the outer regions and secondary markets. And probably the biggest surprise to me was the growing presence of solo buyers in the 25 to 30-year age group, which I would have to imagine are most often backed by family support or alternative funding. The takeaway here is clear that Ontario's housing market over the next year or so is probably going to be shaped by first-time buyers in ways we haven't seen before. This is the first time they've had such a big spread above any other buyer in the market. And historically, and in a Canadian context, they're one of the biggest buyers in the market. And I've always been of the opinion that first-time buyers are the marginal buyer. They are the price setter because they're inexperienced. They're likely to work with an inexperienced realtor, and they have a qualitative incentive to be a little bit irrational, right? They have long investment horizon or long ownership horizon. They're statistically more likely to make mistakes, and they can more easily get wrapped up in that kind of, this is my dream home and I'm willing to pay a bit of a premium for it mentality. As it stands so far, we haven't seen them having a positive impact on prices. Prices are still falling in the GTA. And a lot of that, especially on the average side, could be getting skewed down by your first-time home buyers driving the market because they tend to buy the cheaper properties at the bottom of the market. And this is why the bottom of the market seems to be where you're seeing more activity, right? Like something like 80% of your purchases exist below $1 million. If you found this walkthrough helpful, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the video, and drop a comment on your thoughts on how first-time home buyers could change the market where you live. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out Snapple in the description below. and leave a comment for a chance to win a $100 gift card. Thanks again for watching. Really means a lot to me that you would take the time out of your day to watch this video, and I'll see you again soon.